Once upon a time, in a small village near the edge of the Great Masai Mara, there lived a young boy named Kamau. Kamau was curious, always asking questions, and loved exploring the vast savannah that surrounded his home. He lived with his grandmother, Kamau and Wanjiru, who told him stories about the animals and the land. One bright morning, Kamau was sitting under the big baobab tree in front of their mud hut, listening to Kamau and Wanjiru. She was telling him about a magical lion named Simba, who was said to protect the village from danger. Simba is no ordinary lion, Kamau and Wanjiru said, her voice full of mystery. He has a golden mane that shines like the sun and eyes that can see through the darkest night. But he only appears to those who are truly brave. Kamau's eyes widened with excitement. He had always dreamed of meeting Simba, the magical lion. He wondered if he was brave enough to see him. Kamau asked eagerly, "Do you think I could meet Simba?" Kamau and Wanjiru chuckled softly, patting Kamau's head. "Maybe, my child. But you must remember, bravery is not just about being strong. It's about doing what is right, even when you are scared." That night, as the stars twinkled brightly in the sky, Kamau lay on his mat, thinking about what Kamau and Wanjiru had said. He knew he had to be brave, but he didn't know how or when he would get his chance. The very next day, as Kamau was fetching water from the river, he noticed something strange. The usually calm and peaceful river had become rough, and the animals that usually drank from it were nowhere to be seen. Kamau felt a shiver run down his spine, but he remembered Kamau's words about bravery. Without wasting any time, Kamau ran back to the village to warn everyone. "Something is wrong with the river," he shouted as he reached the village square. The elders gathered around him, listening carefully to what he had to say. Elder Menzi Juma, the oldest and wisest in the village, spoke up. "The river is the lifeblood of our village. If it is in danger, we all are." The villagers began to worry. What could have caused the river to change so suddenly? Menzi Juma decided to send a group to investigate, and without hesitation, Kamau volunteered to go along. As they approached the river, Kamau's heart pounded in his chest. The closer they got, the louder the sound of the rushing water became. When they reached the riverbank, they saw what was causing the disturbance. A large tree had fallen across the river, blocking the flow of water and creating a dangerous whirlpool. But that wasn't all. Just beyond the tree, they saw something even more alarming. Just beyond the fallen tree, they saw the glinting eyes of crocodiles lurking in the murky water. Normally, the crocodiles stayed downstream, far from the village, but now they were inching closer, drawn by the disturbed waters. The villagers gasped in fear, but Kamau's eyes were fixed on something else. On the other side of the river, hidden in the tall reeds, was a small lion cub trapped by the rising water. It was shivering, its golden fur barely visible through the thick grass. Kamau's heart skipped a beat. Could this be Simba's cub? He didn't know, but he was sure that the cub needed help. Menzi Juma saw the fear in the villagers' eyes and knew they needed to act quickly. "We must clear the tree from the river," he said, his voice strong but calm. "If we don't, the water will flood our village and the crocodiles will come even closer." The villagers began to discuss how they could move the massive tree. It was too big to lift and too dangerous to approach with the crocodiles so near. Kamau listened to the adults talk, but his mind kept drifting back to the cub. He knew he had to do something, but what could a young boy do against such danger? Just then, Kamau remembered something Kamau and Wanjiru had told him. When you are faced with a problem too big for one person to solve, think of how the animals work together. Even the smallest of creatures can make a difference. Kamau looked around and noticed some strong vines hanging from the nearby acacia trees. An idea began to form in his mind. He quickly ran to Elder Menzi Juma and whispered his plan. Menzi Juma listened carefully, nodding as Kamau spoke. When Kamau finished, the elder smiled and patted him on the back. "You are indeed brave, Kamau. Let us try your plan." With Menzi Juma's help, Kamau explained his idea to the villagers. They would use the vines to tie the tree and slowly pull it away from the river, using the strength of many villagers together. At the same time, Kamau would cross the river where the water was shallow and try to rescue the cub. The villagers quickly set to work, gathering the vines and tying them securely around the fallen tree. Meanwhile, Kamau, with his heart pounding in his chest, waded into the water. The current was strong, but he moved carefully, keeping his eyes on the cub. As Kamau reached the other side, the cub looked up at him with wide, frightened eyes. "It's okay," Kamau whispered, trying to soothe the little lion. "I'm here to help you." He gently picked up the cub, cradling it in his arms, and began the careful journey back across the river. Just as Kamau reached the safety of the riverbank, the villagers gave a mighty pull, and the tree began to shift. The water started to flow smoothly again, and the crocodiles, seeing their path blocked, slowly retreated back downstream. The villagers cheered as the danger passed, but their cheers grew even louder when they saw Kamau emerging from the river, the cub safe in his arms. Wanjiru raised his hands to quiet the crowd. "Today, Kamau has shown us what true bravery is," he said, his voice filled with pride. He faced his fears and saved not just the village, but this little life as well. As Kamau stood there, holding the cub, he noticed something incredible. The setting sun cast a golden glow over the cub's fur, making it shine just like Gogo Wanjiru had described. Could this cub be related to Simba, the magical lion? Before Kamau could think any further, a soft rustling came from the nearby bushes. The villagers turned to see a large figure emerging from the shadows. From the shadows emerged a majestic lioness, her golden fur gleaming in the fading sunlight. Her eyes were fixed on Kamau, but they held no threat, only a deep concern. The villagers gasped and took a step back, but Kamau stood still, sensing that this lioness was not here to harm them. The lioness slowly approached, her gaze never leaving the cub in Kamau's arms. When she was just a few paces away, she let out a soft, low growl, a sound of worry, not anger. Kamau understood immediately. This was the cub's mother. "Shh." "It's okay," Kamau whispered to the cub, who was now squirming in his arms. He gently placed the cub on the ground, and it quickly scampered to its mother, rubbing against her legs with a joyful purr. The lioness nuzzled the cub, her tension easing as she realized her baby was safe. Wanjiru stepped forward, his eyes wide with amazement. "This is not just any lioness," he said in a hushed tone. "She is Nala, the queen of the Savannah. They say she watches over all the animals, protecting them from harm." The villagers watched in awe as Nala lifted her head and looked at Kamau. There was a moment of silence, as if she was acknowledging the boy's bravery and kindness. Then, with a graceful turn, she began to walk away, her cub trotting beside her. But just before they disappeared into the tall grass, Nala stopped and glanced back at Kamau one last time, her eyes glowing with a silent promise. Kamau felt a strange warmth in his heart as he watched them go. He didn't know what that look meant, but he had a feeling that this was not the last time he would see Nala and her cub. The villagers began to talk excitedly, their fear replaced by wonder. They had witnessed something magical, something that would be told in stories for years to come. Wanjiru placed a hand on Kamau's shoulder and smiled down at him. "You have done a great thing today, Kamau. The spirits of the land and the animals are with you." But as the excitement died down and the villagers returned to their homes, Kamau couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something much bigger. That night, as he lay in bed, he dreamed of the savannah, of the golden lioness and her cub, and of a distant land where the sun never set. In his dream, Kamau stood at the edge of a vast, open plain with Nala by his side. The wind whispered secrets to him, secrets of the land and the animals that roamed it. And somewhere in the distance, a deep, powerful roar echoed across the savannah, a roar that called to him, beckoning him to follow. Kamau woke with a start, his heart pounding with excitement. He knew what he had to do. The savannah was calling him, and he couldn't ignore its voice. The next morning, Kamau set out early, his mind filled with the images from his dream. He needed to find Gogo Wanjiru. She would know what to do. As he walked through the village, he noticed that everything seemed different. The trees swayed gently in the breeze, as if waving to him, and the birds sang a song that sounded like a melody from the dream. When Kamau reached Gogo Wanjiru's hut, he found her sitting outside, weaving a colourful basket. She looked up as he approached, her wise eyes twinkling with a knowing smile. "Ah, Kamau," she said. "I've been expecting you. The Savannah speaks to those who listen, and it seems you have heard its call." Kamau nodded, unable to hide his excitement. "I had a dream, Gogo. Nala was there, and she showed me a place I've never seen before. I think I think I need to go there." Gogo Wanjiru set down her basket and took Kamau's hands in hers. "The path you are about to walk is not an easy one, my child, but it is a path of great importance. You are connected to the land in ways that even you do not yet understand. The spirits have chosen you, Kamau, to protect this land and its creatures, but you will not do it alone." Kamau looked at Gogo Wanjiru, feeling a mix of fear and excitement. "What do you mean? Who will help me?" Gogo Wanjiru smiled and pointed to the horizon. "You will meet many along the way, some from the village, some from the wild, and others from places you have yet to imagine. But remember this, Kamau, the greatest strength comes not from power, but from the heart." Kamau nodded, determination filling his chest. He knew that his journey was just beginning, and that there were many challenges ahead, but he also knew that he wasn't afraid. With Nala's promise in his heart and the guidance of the wise Gogo Wanjiru, Kamau was ready to face whatever lay ahead. And so, with the first light of dawn, Kamau set out on a new adventure, unaware of the dangers and wonders that awaited him just beyond the horizon. As Kamau walked away from Gogo Wanjiru's hut, the morning sun cast long shadows across the path ahead. The village was waking up, but Kamau's thoughts were already miles away, in the wild plains where Nala roamed. He reached the edge of the village and paused, taking one last look at his home before stepping into the unknown. Suddenly he heard a rustle in the bushes. His heart raced, but then out popped Wanjiru, his best friend, with a mischievous grin. "You didn't think you'd go on an adventure without me, did you?" she teased, holding up a sturdy walking stick. Kamau smiled, feeling a surge of relief. With Wanjiru by his side, he felt even braver. Together, they stepped into the vast savannah, ready for whatever awaited them. Kamau and Wanjiru trekked through the savannah, their excitement growing with every step. They followed the faint tracks left by Nala, moving deeper into the wilderness. As the sun climbed higher, the heat became intense, but they pressed on, determined to find Kamau's lioness friend. After hours of walking, they reached a large acacia tree where the tracks seemed to end. Kamau knelt down, examining the ground closely. Suddenly, a low growl echoed from the bushes nearby. The children froze, hearts pounding. Slowly, they turned and saw Nala emerging from the shadows. But something was wrong. Nala looked agitated, her eyes wide and her body tense. She wasn't alone. 2 small cubs peeked out from behind her, trembling. Wanjiru gasped. "Kamau, those are Nala's cubs. She's protecting them." Kamau's eyes widened in understanding. She must have been worried about them and needed to keep them safe. Just then, the wind shifted, carrying the scent of something dangerous. Kamau and Wanjiru turned to see a pack of hyenas circling in the distance, their eyes gleaming with hunger. Nala growled again, standing between her cubs and the approaching threat. Kamau knew they had to act quickly. Wanjiru whispered, "We need to help Nala." But how? Kamau's mind raced. "We can use the branches from the acacia tree to scare the hyenas away," he said, grabbing a large stick. Wanjiru quickly followed, and together they began waving the branches and shouting, trying to make themselves look as big and intimidating as possible. The hyenas hesitated, unsure of the strange creatures before them. Slowly they began to back away, growling in frustration. Nala roared, a sound filled with both warning and relief, as the hyenas finally retreated into the distance. Breathing heavily, Kamau and Wanjiru dropped the branches. Nala approached them slowly, her eyes filled with gratitude. She nuzzled Kamau's hand, and the cubs, now feeling safe, scampered around them playfully. Kamau and Wanjiru knew it was time to head back to the village. As they walked, Kamau reflected on their adventure. He realized that bravery wasn't just about facing danger, it was about protecting those who couldn't protect themselves.
As Kamau and Wanjiru approached the village, they were greeted with cheers and smiles. The villagers had been worried when they noticed the children were missing, but seeing them return safely, and with such a story to tell, filled everyone with pride and relief. Gogo Wanjiru was the first to rush forward and embrace Kamau. "You have done well, my child," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "You have shown bravery and wisdom beyond your years." Musa Juma also stepped forward, his eyes twinkling with approval. "Kamau, Wanjiru, your actions today have not only protected Nala and her cubs but have also safeguarded our village. The spirits of the land will surely bless you both." Kamau and Wanjiru exchanged smiles, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. But before they could say anything, Nala emerged from the tall grass, her cubs following closely behind. The villagers gasped in awe and took a step back, unsure of what would happen next. But Nala, the queen of the savannah, showed no signs of aggression. Instead, she walked gracefully toward the children, her eyes filled with gratitude. She nuzzled Kamau's hand once more, then turned to Wanjiru and did the same. It was as if she was thanking them for their courage and kindness. The cubs, curious and playful, began to explore the village, much to the delight of the children who had gathered around. They laughed and clapped, amazed at how tame the cubs were, despite being wild animals. Musa Juma raised his hand, signaling for silence. "Let us honor this moment," he said, his voice carrying a tone of reverence. "We have witnessed something extraordinary today, a bond between humans and the animals of the savannah, a bond of trust and respect." He turned to Kamau and Wanjiru, his expression serious. "You two have shown us the importance of living in harmony with the land and its creatures. This is a lesson we must all carry in our hearts." The villagers nodded in agreement, and Gogo Wanjiru stepped forward, her eyes shining with pride. "Let us celebrate Kamau and Wanjiru's bravery with a feast," she declared. "Tonight, we will gather around the fire, share stories, and give thanks for the blessings we have received." As the preparations for the feast began, Kamau and Wanjiru sat together under the baobab tree, watching the cubs play. They felt a deep sense of peace and contentment, knowing they had done something truly meaningful. But Kamau couldn't shake the feeling that his journey was far from over. The dream he had, the distant roar that called to him, it all seemed to hint at something more. He looked at Wanjiru, who seemed to sense his thoughts. "Do you think we'll have more adventures like this?" Wanjiru asked, her eyes filled with excitement. Kamau nodded slowly, a small smile playing on his lips. "I think so. There's so much out there, Wanjiru, so much to discover and protect. And I have a feeling that Nala and her cubs will be a part of that." As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden glow over the village, Kamau felt a sense of determination settle in his heart. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for sure. He was ready to face it, with Wanjiru by his side and the lessons of the savannah guiding him. That night, as the villagers gathered around the fire, sharing food and stories, Kamau and Wanjiru sat together, feeling the warmth of the flames and the love of their community. The cubs had curled up beside them, their soft purring a soothing sound in the night. Gogo Wanjiru began to tell a story, her voice carrying the wisdom of the ages. She spoke of the bond between humans and animals, of the importance of courage and compassion, and of the mysteries of the savannah that only the bravest could uncover. Kamau listened intently, his heart swelling with pride and purpose. He knew that his journey had just begun, and that there were many more stories to be written, stories of bravery, friendship, and the enduring connection between all living things. As the fire crackled and the stars twinkled above, Kamau made a silent promise to himself and to the land he loved. He would protect the savannah and its creatures, just as Nala had protected her cubs. And no matter what challenges lay ahead, he would face them with courage, wisdom, and a heart full of love. The night deepened, and one by one, the villagers drifted off to sleep, content and at peace. But Kamau remained awake for a while longer, gazing up at the sky. He felt the presence of something greater, a force that connected him to the land, the animals, and the people around him. And in that moment, Kamau knew that he was exactly where he was meant to be.